Anyway, off we go. They'll just have to remain standing. Well, probably a number of you know me. Mike Dinn. At Apollo 11 time, I was the Deputy Station Director at Honeysuckle, Deputy to Tom Reed. Prior to that, I've been at Tidbinbilla in a similar role, so on surveyor, so that gave me a good lead into Honeysuckle. Got to know this Scotsman. I admired Tom greatly. It was often quite difficult to get an idea past him, but once he'd endorsed it, he was the ultimate helper. Once I convinced Tom of something, it happened. Shame he can't be here, but Margaret's here. I'm not going to attempt to go through everybody who's here, because I'd be bound to miss somebody out. But you really do have the cream of the space biz, past, present and future around here. And I hope you're all I'm sure you're all going to enjoy yourself. At the 40th event, when I stood in this very same place, I said there would be no 50th, even if John Saxon thought there was to be. Betty wouldn't let him. But in the end, Betty and John have been the couple who've made done most of the work. Alrighty, well, it seems that Ian Mackay was going to be here and he isn't. So I think I hand over to our MC.
Good morning, ladies, gentlemen, distinguished guests. My name is Patrick Heelan, and it is absolutely, possibly the most amazing thing that I get to do today. So thank you all so very much. That was on behalf of me, but I would also like to thank you on behalf of Questacon, the National Science and Technology Center that allows me to be here dressed as you see me today. Today's a really big day, and I want to start off with a few acknowledgments. I would like to first acknowledge about 20,000 years ago, as I learned yesterday, there was the first person who ever, on behalf of the human race, put a footstep on this country. And this is the beginning of the Ngunnawal people's custodianship of this land. This began the story of humans here. The really interesting thing is that if we skip ahead a long time in the story, and there are lots of chapters that we're going to skip over, we get to another acknowledgement that I would like to do about humans wanting to take that first step somewhere else. I would really like, right now, to have all of the children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren of the trackers to raise their hands. And I would like, yay, give them a big round of applause. And I did that because the trackers' arms are sore from yesterday. They had to do this all the time. But all of you, you're that next generation. I would like to acknowledge your elders, past and present, who allowed us to put that foot on the moon. And thank you very, very much. Also today wouldn't be available, possible, without some sponsors and some of the people who have made this possible. So I would like to acknowledge them as well. Mick Gentleman, MLA, thank you very much for all of your support. The Embassy of the United States of America, for all of their support. The Polish White Eagle Club. the Royal Australian Mint, Australia Post, Telstra, Cartel Hospitality Group, Nova Systems, the Space Industry Association, the Australian Space Agency, the Canberra Deep Space Communication Complex, and Questacon, the National Science and Technology Center, who provided a moon for Mike and John. They're hard to say no to. So now, just before I make a mistake, you may have seen me here 10 years ago. Yes. Now I need these. Mike, thank you very much for rounding everybody up and giving everybody the roundup and wind-up to be here. The entree is about to be served and should be starting right about now. I'm thinking if we're we're on time. You guys are good. And what I would like to do while this is being served is I would like to introduce somebody who you may remember from when Apollo 11 launched. From that first launch, that big Saturn V rocket taking off. And it's someone you will recognize, someone you know, and you're out here, and thank you so much for coming. But I would just like to introduce Mr. Derryn Hinch, who's going to give us a little bit of... There you are, Derryn. Come on up, come on up, come on up. Excellent. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good morning. Sorry, I was late, and also thanks for coming. And I'm very touched to be here. I'll be very brief. I shall tell you a couple of things. And that was that 50 years ago this week, I was at Cape Kennedy, since renamed Cape Canaveral because Jackie Kennedy decided that it should go back to the old name. But I was there and watched them take off, and I was privileged to have a chat to Buzz Aldrin only last week about events of 50 years ago. In my broadcast, it was the first ever live radio broadcast I'd done because I was a print journalist for the Fairfax group, for the Sydney Morning Herald and the Sydney Sun, and it wasn't a bad topic to be your first subject to have to do a broadcast on. But we got there about midnight, because there were 1 million people in and around Florida at that time, all trying to find vantage points to watch the blast off. We were 3 miles, about 5 and a bit k's away from the actual launch, but believe me, it didn't seem very far at all. I was lucky to be in a press pool that was taken inside with some family, Neil Armstrong's family, and Aldrin and Collins, and some NASA officials, and we watched them, stood probably 6 feet from them as they walked out with their white suits on, like that one, and carrying their life support systems as they climbed into the bus to head out to the launch pad. And we were there for like hours and hours before, 9 hours, 10 hours before it launched. But the thing that got me, when you think well, you're a long way away, I got home that night after the blast off, and I was in the shower in my motel. I looked down, I had these huge black strips across my thighs. I thought, what the hell is that? And it was from where, sitting in this makeshift press stand, my knees had banged on the desk underneath as the power of the liftoff actually physically hit you. And I said in the story I wrote the other day for the papers that it was like being hit in the gut with a baseball bat. You actually physically felt it wham at you. And being naive in radio those days, I said, you probably can hardly hear me, and I was screaming down the microphone. But I did say at the time, ad-libbing, I said, as long as I live, I will never see anything quite like this one. And 50 years later, that still applies. It was one of the most awesome moments of my life, and I hope you enjoy the day. Thank you.
So now I think we will relive that moment. It's good to relive those moments. And now, I would like to take a moment, though, to propose a toast to the families, the friends, and the people who support, and the people who did it, and all of the people who made that spectacular moment and the spectacular moments to follow. I would like to say, one small sip for me. One giant congratulations from the entire world to you. Now I'm going to get out of your hair and you're going to be able to enjoy your entree as they're being served. If there's anything anybody needs, please come and see me. I'm the guy in the white suit. I should be noticeable. If there's anything that anybody needs to change over the course of the day, this day is for you. It's not about any schedule. It's your day to celebrate a fantastic thing. Enjoy your entree.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. It's a pleasure to join you here today on the stage. Can I firstly acknowledge we're meeting on the lands of the Ngunnawal people, the traditional custodians, and I respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to life in this area. Can I also acknowledge my parliamentary colleague Nicole Lauder and three former senators, former Senator Margaret Reid, Kate Lundy and Derryn Hinch. Good to see you here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when I was young, I'd look up to see points of light across the sky dominated by the moon. And I wondered, as I'm sure many of us did, what it would be like to stand on the moon and look back at that small boy standing up into the dark. We dreamed of adventures of Buck Rogers, of John Carter, but such flights of imagination were nothing compared to the fantastic idea of actually travelling to the moon. President Kennedy laid down that exact challenge, that the United States would land a man on the moon and bring them back. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard, because the goal will serve to organise and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is that one that we're willing to accept. So less than 70 years after the Wright brothers flew just 37 metres at Kitty Hawk, the world watched as a Saturn V Apollo 11 thundered up from the Merritt Island bound for Tranquility Base 360,000 kilometres away. Everyone here, of course, knows the enormity of this achievement, the boldness of the technical mastery that was required for this milestone in human history. This year is the 50th anniversary of that first moment Neil Armstrong climbed down from the ladder of the LEM, an event that was witnessed by 600 million people, around 1/5 of the world's population. And we're here today to celebrate this remarkable achievement and to acknowledge the work that those here in Canberra who were such a key component of the Apollo program. The trackers were a critical part of Apollo's ground station network, and as we all know, were responsible for providing those first television images of the moonwalk. However, we must also remember the full triumphs of Honeysuckle Creek tracking station, from the Apollo 8 all the way through to the moon landings, to Skylab, and finally Pioneer orbiting Venus. Young people of the iPhone generation have little understanding of the difficulties in providing live television from the moon in 1969. The trackers here today, and those in our memories, were the technical wizards of the day. Their achievements are just part of the massive undertaking that was the Apollo program, but such an important one for us in our memories and collective understanding of what they achieved. It was from their efforts the world was able to see those first steps of the moon and the man standing on the moon with those famous words, "That is one small step for a man and one giant leap for mankind." So I'd like to personally thank all of those here today who have worked at Honeysuckle Creek, the Orroral Valley, Tidbinbilla and the other areas supporting the Apollo program. Humankind will again venture beyond Earth's orbit. We'll return to the moon and set foot on Mars and then beyond. This week's celebration of the 50th anniversary of the moon landing have been a great success, bringing Canberrans, both young and old, together to celebrate and learn more about Canberra's role and what you and others achieved back in 1969. Thank you.
When Neil Armstrong first took that step that was sent from Honeysuckle Creek through all of the infrastructure, the Telstra stuff everywhere, and went around the world and came to me as a 5-year-old sitting on the floor watching my parents, the most animated and tense and excited as I ever saw them in their entire lives. So, thank you for all of that, but we're getting ready to go. I believe we have 1 minute and counting. If there's engineers out there who have a watch that's different than mine, how are you? We're looking for the exact time, which is 12:52 and 50 seconds. We're 40 seconds, T-minus 38 seconds.
10,
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I really want to say a special thank you to Colin McKellar, who is the person who put all that together for us and helped us line this up. So thank you very much, Colin. And thank you for an awful lot more than that, but don't have enough time to say all the things we're thankful for you, okay? Now the story, we just saw what happened 50 years ago. So we're going to take a little bit of a step. And the interesting thing about that day is all of the things that it sparked that happened later. And some of you may remember the 20th anniversary when everybody got together. Anybody remember that one? And there was someone who came to that very specially because he wanted to sing a song that he wrote. He was one of Australia's best-known musicians, country musicians at that time. He wrote a song called Armstrong, kind of applicable. His name, Reg Lindsay. And we're going to actually play that in just a moment, but first I just want to welcome his wife, Heather, who's here. Heather, are you here? Heather, where are you? Oh, okay. Thank you so much for coming. So now we're going back 30 years, and I think, John, where are you? You're the one who took the footage. So he's the one to blame for any camera issues. And cameras were different 30 years ago. Just a quick little correction. Rosalind, I'm sorry. It's his wife, Rosalind, who's here today. So nice to have you here. Thank you. Excellent. So now we're in that part of the day where there's a few messages. So we're going to move again into the future from where we were, another 20 years from there, to the 40th anniversary, when a message was sent to the Honeysuckle trackers from Neil Armstrong himself, and we would like to play that now as well. And now we're back to today. And we've got a few more messages that have come from around the world to all of you here. And so we're going to go through and we're going to play those right now. The first is from Dick Nafsker, and his message comes from Apollo TV ground support. He was the person who was there doing that. So he has a few words for you as well. The next message for you today comes from the tracking station outside of Madrid. So there may be... I think like most trackers, they're not that good at talking themselves. They're much better at hooking up links so other people can talk to each other, so that is good. And now we have a special message from Fred Hayes from Apollo 13.
Hello everybody. I'm sorry I couldn't join you for the big anniversary coming up, Apollo 11 in July here. But maybe the next best thing is I tie into you with a little talk here with some media. I know and hope all of you are doing well down there and remembering those good old days. They were exciting days, and particularly your coverage allowed the world to see Apollo 11 in July with their landing and walk on the moon. I hope also that you remember, and I thank you very much for the super effort you did, extraordinary effort you did. I heard some people didn't get much sleep to support the Apollo 13 mission I flew on, where we needed your help to get our power down by use of your stations, tracking stations in Australia. We were able to turn off our power amplifier, and it saved 2.5 amps. Now 2.5 amps on a 30-volt system doesn't sound like much, but it was tremendous because I had figured we'd go down to 18 amps of mission control. Eventually, with your help and another trick or two, got us down to 12 amps, which allowed us to survive to get back to entry within our battery power available in the landing craft. But anyway, I hope all of you feel as I do, that we were fortunate. Certainly I feel fortunate to have been around at the time and take part in such an extraordinary and unusual, for the only one of its kind, the Apollo program. Anyway, I wish you all well and have a good time at the celebration party.
Our final message from today comes from the main flight coordinator for the landing of Apollo 11 from NASA, Gene Kranz.
Good afternoon. This is Gene Kranz. I was flight director for Gemini and Apollo. And I wish to thank our Australian friends, but more so our teammates in Australia. I was the flight director for the landing, and I thank you for your critical support. I thank you for every mission. The Australian sites were critical. During Project Mercury, the Maché and Woomera tracking stations and the Indian Ocean ship filled the gap in network communications in the southern hemisphere. Your cities turned on the lights as the Mercury capsule flew overhead. It was unique and a very welcome salute for our early astronauts. In Gemini, Ed Fendell, the Capcom at the Carnarvon tracking station, gave Ed White the go to depress the cabin and begin the United States' first EVA. Now, 50 years later, we are jointly celebrating man's first landing on the moon. I don't know about you, but it didn't seem that long ago. During that mission, the Honeysuckle tracking station received, transmitted the video of Armstrong's first step onto the moon. On the receiving end at Houston were mission controllers, and we would thank Mike Dinn and John Saxon. Today, my controllers in Houston join you in celebration of that event. I remember that day. It is clear, vivid. I can hear the astronauts' voices, never to be forgotten. I don't know what you're drinking at your celebration, but on many of the Mercury missions, Jack Dowling, the Australian representative, would deliver us a keg of Swan Lager. It was a fine beer to celebrate our achievements during the Mercury program. If I had a keg of Swan here today, my controllers and I would join you in celebration of this great event of the Apollo 11 first lunar landing. This is Gene Kranz, signing off.
John Saxon, can I get a Swan Lager, please? No? Okay. But speaking of John Saxon, we've come to the point in the day when John was going to come up and say a couple of words about some of the literature that has been, the wonderful books that have been written, all about the things that have happened from Honeysuckle Creek. So if I can have a really long round of applause while he's on his way up here for John, we'll just keep clapping. All right, that's enough. He's getting embarrassed. John.
Not quite sure what I'm meant to be saying to you today.
Something about some books and some authors.
Ah, right. Yes, I'm glad you reminded me. Yeah, we've got a bunch of books here, 4 or 5 actually. We've got the authors here, as well as the books. And I think there's somebody just coming in there to the end table who's going to sell them to you if you haven't got them already. But if you've got some books with you that you would like autographed, we're going to ask the authors to go up there in the last hour or so and autograph them for you. There's actually, I think, 5 books in all. I've got to remember them. First of all, Hamish Lindsay's book, Tracking Apollo to the Moon, which is being shown over there with great aplomb. And Hamish is here, which is marvellous, because he's pretty sick, but I'm sure he'd be happy to sign up any books that you have of his. And you can still buy them on Amazon and everywhere else. Also we have, let me think, we've got Andrew Tink. Where are you, Andrew? Are you still here? Oh, good. You survived the week. like the rest of us, just. Yes, Andrew's written a fabulous book called Honeysuckle Creek, and if you haven't read it, it's all the things that the publishers told Hamish to take out of his book. It's all about the people rather than the technology and the raw facts. So Andrew's book is fabulous. We were so grateful when it got written, because nobody had ever written about the people before, and it was great. So there's Andrew's going to sign up books if you've got them here, or you can buy them, I think. And then after that, we've got, let me think, who have we got? Sorry?
Brian Sullivan's book,
Of course. Yeah, Brian Sullivan, where are you? Where are you, Brian? Ha! It's all right for some, they're right down the front. Goodness me, we're down the back. So, anyhow, Brian and Jackie French, his wife, wrote a great little book. What was it called, Brian? Fly Me to the Moon and Back, that's right. And it's recently been republished. It won all sorts of awards, and it's been republished. It's all new and beautiful, and we'll have to buy one of those off you, Brian, and get you to sign it. Thank you very much. Who else is here? There's
Meeting the Spheres?
Imagining the Spheres.
Oh, of course. Of course. Dr. Stephen Hobbs from the Australian Defence Force Academy has written this great book called Imagining the Spheres. And it's about the solar system, and quite a lot in there about the moon, with the odd little reference to the people who were there at Honeysuckle. Thanks, Stephen. Who have I left out?
Tidbinbilla.
Tidbinbilla, of course. Tidbinbilla have been getting a raw deal for many years. They were an extra 4 receivers and 2 transmitters for us, and provided wonderful, wonderful work, and it's been very little acknowledged. They supported all the Apollo missions, and yeah, there you go. And so 2 ex-Tidbinbilla workers, John Heath and Brian, Bruce Window, of course, have written a book called Tidbinbilla, The Forgotten History, or something of that sort. What's it called? I can see you over there looking very annoyed. Anyhow, it's a great little book, only cost you $10, and they'll sign it for you even. So that's what's going to come. If you're interested in reading about all this stuff, they're the guys to go and see over there. They'll sign anything. Back up a menu, roll of toilet paper, you name it. Okay, good to...
John.
Oh, Kerry, oh my God. Why didn't you warn me about this, and I would have brought a list along. Kerry Doherty is probably the leading space, what can I say, the leading space historian here in Australia. She goes all over the world teaching people about space, and she's got an absolutely beautiful book called, what's it called, Kerry? Australia in Space. Well worth a look. It's a fabulous book. So I hope everybody's reminded me about everything I should have been saying. Catch you later, guys.
So what we're going to do now is not on the schedule. We're going a little bit rogue and off script here. And I would like to invite another gentleman who has been so instrumental in everything that we've been doing. If I can have Mike Dean come up onto the stage. And then we can conclude our secret business, Mike.
Not long, but I'd like to feel this is the most important speech of the lot. Had it not been for John Saxon, none of this would have happened. John started planning this 2 years ago, believe it or not, 2 years ago. And he said, we're going to have the biggest, bestest celebration we've ever had. I said, John, don't be too optimistic. He said, no, you've got to do it this time. And so he set this little committee up, and somehow or other I got roped into it, play a secondary role, and 4 or 5 others have helped. A few ring-ins later on, we started to learn the older we get, the harder it becomes to do this sort of thing. But in the end, the biggest task was the table layout, believe me. I didn't realise there were so many tables we had here. But every one of you has been very carefully placed on the right table in the right seat by John and Betty, plus a couple of other helpers. So I think we all owe John a very special thank you for all his efforts. Yes, we have a very special, the other special member of our committee was Hamish Lindsay. Where are you, Hamish?
He's over there.
G'day. Just for every photo you see is Hamish's, hundreds of them. Cole has this fantastic website, but if it wasn't for Hamish's photos, there wouldn't be much on it. And so, in recognition of Hamish's contribution, starting right at Muse Shea, I think he's by far the longest serving member, we have a special presentation.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mike. So, Derryn Hinch would like to present to you with this plaque here that we'll let you all see from up here. And then, Derryn, we might actually go down there to do that.
I'll do that in a minute, but first of all, I just want to say something here today, and that is there have been many acknowledgements and thank yous throughout the weekend, of course, but there's one person in particular who can't go unnoticed because he has procured an incomparable culmination of works that capture these precious moments in time that are, to say the least, mesmerising and for most of us awe-inspiring. His contributions have proven invaluable to the preservation of the moon landing. They've immortalised Honeysuckle Creek, the tracking station, and its role in the Apollo missions. We've heard about that before. He has worked tirelessly towards procuring an everlasting legacy for Honeysuckle, which will not be forgotten. And he's somebody who's provided an eternal life to Honeysuckle Creek, and whose work will continue to secure Australia's role in man's landing on the moon and in space forever after. So I'm coming down, Hamish, and give you this.
Tidbinbilla, people. Yay!
The final door prize for the day is this beautiful quilt that is right behind me. so pay very close attention to your tickets. The quilt has been designed and produced by Faye Harrop, who is the daughter of Cyril Fenwick, and has been generously donated as a door prize as a memento of this wonderful occasion, and as a tribute to the role Australia and the Australians played and are still playing in both the manned spaceflight missions and deep space exploration. And now, if I can get all the Orroral Valley team up here onto the stage. The last official piece of business is a very large and possibly the biggest thank you and the most important thing to talk about today. And that is, we really need to think that none of this would have happened if all of these people who worked out to make this picture go out to the world, it wouldn't have happened without their families, without their spouses, wives, partners, and the support of their children, who I think get the biggest thank you of the day. So I want to thank all of you who actually allowed this to happen and gave such great support. A big round of applause.